Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar will be about character design for comics in Clip Studio Paint, presented by Amancay Nahuelpan. Before we begin the webinar, there are some housekeeping items that we'd like to go through. The webinar will be approximately 1 hour long. All attendees will be muted. Question and answer session will be during the last 15 minutes of the webinar. Attendees can ask questions in the GoToWebinar question box right away. Due to time constraints, not all questions will be answered. This webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be shared on social media and will be sent via email to all registrants and attendees. The panelists for this webinar are Mario Quiñones, myself, Joanna Brower, and Amancay Nahuelpan. For those of you who connect with us for the very first time or have never heard about Clip Studio Paint, Clip Studio Paint is your all-in-one solutions for stunning, ready-to-publish illustrations, comics, manga, and animations. Learn more at clipstudio.net/n and graphically.com. Also, we want to invite you to interact with us in this webinar. So share your Instagram stories with #webinar at Amancay_art, Graphically, Wacom, and Clip Studio Official. We'll be sharing your stories. Amancay Nahuelpan is a writer and comics illustrator, currently working for DC Comics in series like Batman, Detective Comics, Justice League Dark, Nightwing, Crush, and Lobo, and more. Amancay is also the creator of the graphic novel Clandestino, where he works as a writer, illustrator, and colorist. So with that, I'll leave you with Amancay and his presentation, Character Design for Comics in Clip Studio Paint.
All right. Mario, are you still there?
Yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you. Yes, perfect.
Okay, excellent. Cool. All right, then off we go. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Mario and Joanna, for taking care of this webinar. And as it said, I'm going to go through some basics of using Clip Studio and creating or designing characters for comics specifically. I'm going to start showing off some designs from my most recent series called Crush and Lobo, published by DCComics. As you can see, here are several different types of sizes and forms and shapes of these characters. This is like a very rough presentation of what a character's design would be. But the main thing that I want to show you here is how different sometimes character design from gaming to comics will be, because in gaming, you can add as many details as you want, because that's going to be rendered and you're not going to have to draw it again. Which is in comics, you're going to be drawing these characters over and over again. So it's always important to keep that in mind when you're designing a character. As you can see, probably the most complex one here is this robot, which eventually, when I had to draw him over and over again, that ended up being a little bit stressful sometimes, but still, it's trying to keep simple lines. The way I work with Clip Studio on creating these characters is basically always starting from the basics, which is the shape or the face of the character. What I'm gonna do now is show you a little bit of the process of the creation of a character that appeared in a miniseries called Gotham City Monsters that I worked on a couple of years ago. And I usually always start by trying out the faces. That's the first element. For this character, his name was the Red Phantom. The first thing that I obviously this was co-created with the writer, Steve Orlando, and he gave me like a description. It was like a good-looking man with a red suit, kind of like a 1930s look. So from that basis, I started working on the character. So now I started with 3 different options for faces. One of the tools that I really love from Clip Studio is when I'm working on these character designs is the Symmetrical Ruler, which is right here, which I use it a lot to pretty much have like a shortcut for drawing a face in a perfect way, to say so. Here I'm gonna show you how I use this. So as you see here, I have these 3 options. The way I came up with these faces was, first of all, working on the head. As you can see, this ruler, this one that's here, the symmetrical ruler, what it does is it creates a reflection, a mirror reflection on either side of the ruler. So if I draw this to the left, it'll go automatically to the right. And this will allow you to, as the name says, give you like a symmetrical shape of what you're drawing. So you can work here on a face if you want to save some time and make it look as perfect as possible. Now, I usually just use this when I'm creating frontal view, like this front view, because obviously that'll be symmetrical. I don't use this when I'm working on a perspective or something, because that'll be different. But at least this way you will get a more symmetrical face that you can then start working out, adding extra details to make your character look in different shapes and forms. So here you have like the basic head for that. Then I'm gonna turn this ruler off. Then if you have this shape, you can copy and paste it. And now you have 2 same guys. And this is where you can start playing around. The way I started working on these faces on the right was pretty much the same. I first started with some different types of hairs. For example, we have those different styles. We can probably have like a mohawk for this guy, or not a mohawk, something more like this way here. Something that way. Also, with the hair, you could eventually use that same ruler. Let's say we want to have his hair to be the same way on both sides. I'm gonna undo all this, and then, well, not everything. There you go. And then, like, we can start drawing his hair on this way here, and you can have the same exact shape of hair on both sides. So this is really a tool that helps a lot to speed up the creative process of creating the main part, which is the face, which is probably the most important when you're creating a character, besides the suit and all that. And then on this side, we can probably give this guy some other hairstyle, something like that. So here we're not going to use the symmetrical ruler because his hair is not symmetrical on both sides. Then we can get rid of this bald part here. All right, so this is like a very basic way to start working on your character design. Now, once we've gone through this stage of defining the faces, I obviously, to save some time, I worked ahead on that and created these 3 guys here. You start deciding on, well, you go back and forth with whoever you're creating these characters with, and you decide on one character or one face. In this case, option 3 was the one that was going to be our character's face. So let's turn these guys off and let's turn this one off. And let's go to the next stage. Oh, and here's like a basic head shape that you can always start working on. So this is like you start with a circle, and then you start giving down here the shape for the chin and the neck of the character, and then obviously this line in between is going to be where your center point is going to be for your nose and your mouth, and in between the eyes. So that's always the shape that I use to start working on whatever face it is. Even if it's one of these big characters, I'm still going to use those circles and lines to line it up. I'm going to drink some water. All right. So let's see. Now, I'm going to show you the way I started working on the suit of this character. Here we've got, how many options have I got here? Let's see. Okay. So here is one option that, as I said before, I knew this character was going to have a red suit. So I started working on different options for his suit. Remember that I chose face number 3, this guy here. So up here we have his face. I went with this option, and then I went with this other option. All right. When we were creating this character, he was described as a very elegant man. And in terms of choosing the most elegant suit, we decided to go with this little kind of like longer coat. The way you can start working on the suit designs, let me see, where's the layout for this one? Nope. Okay. The way I work on these different suit designs is, again, I start with the basics. As you can see here, the shape of this body is pretty much the same as this one, but then you can start playing around with the different options that you want to go, like changing the coat, changing the pants, or whatever. So once you have your head, I'm going to show you here how to work this out. Okay, so here's the yeah. So this is the one that I was looking for. This one here is the basic shape that I started with to start playing around with what the clothing was gonna look like. So we knew that it was gonna be red, and you can just start here, like as you saw before. We had this one, we had this one, but we can also play around with something else. If we copy and paste that, we're gonna have here another option. And for example, this guy could have had like a different kind of coat. Maybe something that was like more open, something like a leather jacket or something, in order to change the shape of what he was wearing. Now, usually, when you're working with people that, I mean, there's two different ways to go when you're creating characters for comic books. You either create the characters of your own comic book, and you're the absolute owner of what you'll decide that the character is going to look like, or you're working with more people. When it's just you, it's easier because you just decide what you want it to look like, and you're the one that gives the final the final approval. But when you're working with more people, you always have to keep in mind that when you give them more options, it'll take longer for them to decide on what character they want. So ideally, never give them too many options. Maybe 2 to 3 is probably the best number, because otherwise you're gonna have like an infinite amount of options to choose from, and it'll probably take longer to decide on one specific look for the character. And on that same note, ideally, if you already have the one that you like the best in mind, maybe that's the one that you want to probably spend more time working on, just so they can later see what the character will look like when it's like more finished. And that'll definitely speed up their decision on choosing what character they want to go with, which is what I actually did in this case when I was creating these designs for this character. Option number 3, this one here, was the one that I liked the most, so that's the one that I actually ended up sending in. And I had this other one with the suit, and I think one other option that I really didn't care too much, so I didn't even save the file, but that was one other option that I had. So those 3 were the ones that I ended up sending. And obviously, this one on the right was the one that I liked the most. Okay, so here we have another option for what could have been this character. And as we said, because it was a reddish color, we obviously end up painting this. Now, everything I'm doing here is the layout stage. So I'm still not going tight on inks. I'm still not going tight on details, because I'm just working out the way this character is first going to look like. And then once I decided on that, that's when I start working on the final look of the presentation sheet of this character, which is what we'll go on right after I end up coloring this. Now that I think about it, this look that I just came up here looks like a more modern look. Maybe it could be used in other iterations of this character. We can add like a red stripe here, and then make his pants black maybe, or gray, something to match or to actually give a contrast to the color that we're using. There. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the lasso tool to select all these areas and then filling in with the bucket there. And gray shoes. All right, so there we have a different look for this same character, obviously using the same basic shape of the body. As you can see, they're all the same, but that doesn't matter, because what we really want to see here is the way this guy is gonna end up looking like. So obviously, as I spoiled at the beginning, the final option that was chosen for this character was option number 3. So we're gonna get rid of this guy, and we're gonna get rid of this guy. And next, we're gonna go to the next stage, which is the one where you start working out the little details and the turnarounds of the character. The turnarounds are, for those that don't know, are the different views of one same character. So you have the front view, you can have like a side view, and then some details. Where is this one? Okay. So here I have my little cheat sheet for the turnarounds. what I did here was created like a grid to later work on. So I have my main character here. Whoops, let's move him with all the body. There you go. And then what you want to do is you want to have him looking from the side to see what he will look like when you have to draw him on the side view. So he's wearing a long jacket. And this long jacket would look something like this. Okay, so basically what I'm doing here is like inking on top of the lighter pencil that I had. Now, this is always helpful because when you're drawing these characters, you're going to be drawing them over and over again in the same book. And obviously what you want is them to look the same in every frame, every page, or every panel that you're working with them. So you want to make sure that you have him really recognizable on every page. And when you have like these cheat sheets that help you remind you how they look like, that obviously helps a lot. Okay, so that would be what he would look like on that end. And then here we have this guy here, which is the one that we're going to use for the frontal view. And this is what I was talking about earlier, that here in this case, you cannot obviously use the symmetrical ruler. Right now, I'm just using the most basic pencil that comes with Clip Studio. That's usually the one that I always use for when I'm making comics. And here what we're going to do is give like a 3 1/4 view to actually get a better view. We already know what his hair looks like from the side. So here we want to see him like a little bit more on a 3/4 view. Really quick working on that hair. We gave him like a shaved looking 1930s hair and a bow tie here to make him look more classy. And his long coat. And then one of the important things when you're working on these character sheets, because you're gonna be, usually when you're making comics, you can either work on your own and be the one that's gonna be doing all the art and coloring, or you probably sometimes work with teams. And when you're working with teams, you wanna make sure that they also have every note on what the character looks like for the coloring process, because you don't want them to miss a detail or something on the suit. So for example, here what I did is I also came up with details of his gloves because he's wearing gloves. So obviously we want the colorist to know that these are going to be gloves and that they're going to be white. Add a little line there for the seaming there. And then the front, or the top actually, also has some details that are going to be added throughout the comic book. There, and here this little line there. So every time you have these kind of details, you want to make sure that they are on this character sheet. So everyone, whoever is working with this, even if you're the one that's not going to be drawing this character, whoever comes after you, they'll know what he looks like and they'll know where all the details are. And then you start coloring these guys here. Fingers. And the pants. Okay, so we still have 15 minutes. And once you have all this laid out, this is when the fun part comes. Well, actually, all this is fun, but now you start building on the final kind of like details. Or actually, you start inking the sheet, so then you can create the last process of this. And when I'm inking, I'm gonna turn off all these layers just to show you the inking process. Where is this? Here and here. Okay, so when I'm inking, Clip Studio has by default the real G pen, the G pen, turn pen, the turnip pen, all those kind of pens. What I did was I modified the G pen. Here where you see the anti-aliasing, I always turn that to none because there's a thing that I like working when I'm working on Clip Studio is that if you see here, I'm gonna draw this circle. It's right now with anti-aliasing. For those of you that don't know what this is, you see there's it's a clean black circle. If I turn on to the max, which is strong, it gives a smoother edge to the line. And when you fill in, you're gonna see this little halo here. And that is something that when I'm working on comics, it really bugs me because in order to save some time, I like to just whatever, I don't know if it's a shadow because I work a lot with shadows and all that. So I work with this here and then you just fill it in and there's no halo. So for that, I always turn off the anti-aliasing. And I work usually on a 20, yeah, like a 20, I set up the inking pen on number 20. And then you just start inking. So here I have like the layout of the pencils I did earlier for the line art of this character design. And my inking process is quite simple, pretty straightforward. Just going straight ahead there and starting to work on the shapes and shadows. Now this piece is going to be colored, so I'm going to leave a lot of the shadow process to the colors. I'm just going to ink this face really quick so we have time to show the next stage. So here, for example, because this guy has his black hair, this is where you're gonna actually see what I meant before with the anti-aliasing when I fill in the blacks. All right, so instead of having to select all this to just paint it, you go ahead, make sure there's no open spots, and fill it. And you see, and there's no halo there. So it looks the way I want it to look. And we continue with the rest of the head here. I'm gonna ink this guy really quick here so I can show you the coloring process as well. So once you've completed the line art, the black and white part of it, here and here. And here we have more shadows. So here we're gonna fill in with the blacks again, and then here. And the shadow he drops from the face, from the head. All right, so we're gonna speed forward, and what the inking process would end up looking like would be something like this here. Right here, you see? So here I have him. Obviously, I did this earlier before because I want to show you guys all the steps here. This is what it would look like if I just had the inks on it. We add all the details, like we smooth the lines. This is all we did earlier before with the pencils. Now it's just the inks and it looks much cleaner. The gloves, the little details. And then we go ahead and start working on the coloring of this, because obviously we know that he's going to have a red suit and we want him to look red. So what we do is we start working on the selection of the colors. Where is the color selection? Okay, here it is. There's the color. I create a new layer, and this layer will go obviously right under the line art layer. And here is where we start working on the colors. Obviously, because this will be the final piece, I'm gonna be more careful here with the line. Make sure it all looks clean and smooth. I'm just gonna show you the coloring process of this part of the code so we can move forward to the next step. We're just gonna leave it up to there and here. And this here. And we're gonna fill this in. There you go. Bow tie. It's also gonna be this reddish color. There. And his face, we're gonna get it skin color. And work on that really quick. Probably too white. Something darker. There you go. Not too dark. All right. We're gonna have this colored as well. There. All right, obviously the rest of the code is going to be red too, but we're going to play around with some shadows here. So a very simple way to work with the shadows is I create a layer on top of the color layer, and then probably with maybe a very light gray, you start working on the shadows. Now this is a quick way I have to add shadows to these character design sheets that don't really require that much of like a lightning source or something, just to give it a little more of depth. Don't worry, that gray is gonna soon disappear, but first we're gonna select all the areas that need to be covered in shadows. Gonna add some shadows here, the wrinkles of the clothing, some other shadows here, and some shadows here, and this guy is gonna have some shadows here too. And here we're gonna give some shadows to the face and the mouth also. Okay, so really quick there, quick shadows, and then on the layer options you have several options here for editing these layers. Obviously the most common one is, well, it's always a normal, and you can add multiply, and as you see already in multiply you get you can see the change of what it looks like. If it's too dark, you can turn down the opacity. And delete this. We're gonna make his eyes, what color are they gonna be? First of all, to be white here. And let's just go brown. All right, so there you have some quick shadow droppings, and then you can add a little bit of light. We're gonna choose a lighter color for this red, and you can add some little details here, and little by little you start giving this 2D shape a little bit more of a 3D look. You can also use the soft airbrush. We're going to lock that layer and add some color there. And for his face, there, and some blur lights here. Something like that. So then you repeat that same process for the whole sheet, for all the other pieces, to end up having something like this. All right, now here, a couple of things that we have here. First of all, I have the 4 basic colors that this character is going to be using. The details here are, well, obviously the colors, and then the gloves and the sleeve. And one of the things that this character has is that he turns into a demon. So this is his demon shape when he's not a human. And then you can obviously add the name of the character. In this case, he's called the Red Phantom style sheet, and whoever created it. And that would probably be a pretty good way to have this character in front of you all the time, reminding you what he looks like. Obviously, as you saw, I went really quick with the coloring and all that, but then you can play around with all the different lightning options, coloring options, whatever you want to play around with, obviously when you have more time. And that's pretty much it. I think that's the time we have, and now we have to go to the questions, right?
Yes, exactly. I think you're perfectly on time, so we have quite a bit of time to answer questions, and there are a lot. There are
Okay, cool.
a lot of questions, so let's get right into it. We'll start with the very basics. What is your drawing setup? That's always an important one.
As what tools do I use?
Yeah. Your computer, your tablet, if you use
Okay, yeah, I have well, I'm working on a desktop computer, and I work on a Cintiq 22-inch Cintiq.
Okay. Do you have anything else like that you use for your workspace that you need?
Well, I have two monitors. I think it's super important to have your Cintiq monitor for, in this case, Clip Studio, which is the program that I use pretty much all the time for making comics. And then on the other monitor, I usually have like my references or the script that I'm working on, or it's where I play music or whatever. But that's the one that is always there as a guide to what I'm working on the Cintiq. And I also have the Wacom remote control, which is very useful for shortcuts and all that.
Yeah. Speaking of shortcuts, you have this panel in the upper right of your screen that says like pen, pencil. Yeah, exactly that one.
That one. Yeah.
That's a Wacom feature, right?
Yeah, this is a Wacom feature. You can set it up. You can set it up here at the. I'm not sure if you can actually see this one. Let me know if can you see this window?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so Wacom has this Wacom Desktop Center that allows you to set up your remote control and the little windows that you can add as shortcuts. Which in this case, I created this one that has the tools that I use the most when I'm using Clip Studio, which are the pen, the pencil, the eraser, the scale, the freescale, copy, paste, and cut. Those are the ones that my basics. So those I always have them there that I can choose around, and it's really helpful to have that there.
Yeah. Okay,
Saves
good.
time.
Yeah, a lot of people are curious about that because that's not a Clip Studio feature.
Yeah, but with Clip Studio, you can use your keyboard as a shortcut, and I have specific letters aligned to like pen or pencil. That's another way to quickly choose the button that you want to use.
Yeah. Great. Always a popular question. What are the brushes you usually use? At best, pin it down to something. Do you have like a lot of custom brushes, or do you use default brushes more? You touched on this a little bit. Could you go more into detail on that?
Yeah, for sure. So for the basics, like when I'm penciling, as you saw, I use the regular darker pencil that comes with Clip Studio. There's several other different pencils, but I usually I stick to the basics when I'm using programs and all that. So this is the one that I use. And for inking, as you saw before, I can either use the G pin or a modified G pin that I made that is a little bit more rougher looking. But the key thing for me is always this anti-aliasing option where I always turn it to 0. And then you see I have a lot of other different brushes here that I've like either purchased or downloaded. And those are usually for like special effects and stuff like that. This is one that I use a lot, and this is actually a default brush from Clip Studio, which is the droplet for like splatter and stuff like that, that I really love. It has some organic texture to your art, or this other one here, the bloodstain. These are like my favorite brushes outside of the inking one. The semi-dry brush, I like it a lot too. It looks like a dry kind of like stroke. And then I have I purchased these ones that are I forgot her name. She's done a bunch of webinars with Clip Studio too. I can't remember her name right now, but you probably remember her. You guys always work with her.
It's Sarah Jean, the one with Bear.
Yeah, the one with Bear. That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
So I purchased these ones, and I also I like them a lot because they have this organic texture to it. So yeah, sometimes I use these ones also when I'm working on I don't know, sometimes I want to give it like a special kind of like look or something, like this one here for like hatch crossing and all that is really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try to keep it as simple as possible. Mainly just my main goal when I'm working digital is that the line doesn't look like super digital. I try to keep it to look more organic. So that's why I use like just a regular pen that looks like if you're working like with Micron or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then you have like an endless world to explore with all other different brushes for effects and all that. But yeah, it's it's a never-ending story there.
Yeah, there's so many. And brushes are always like the question, is there the one magic brush that can do everything?
Yeah. Usually it's more about what you can do with what you have already and then start playing around.
Yeah. Just as a quick side note, we recently updated a lot of the brushes. So some of in new downloads, not all of the brushes that were there before are in the software anymore, but we still offer them on Clip Studio Assets, so they can still be downloaded for free in case someone's looking for them. So I think like a lot of the pencil brushes disappeared, but they're still on the asset store. So in case someone's looking for that.
Yeah, I guess I haven't updated my Clip Studio yet.
Oh no, if you just update, then they will stay the same, and then you add more.
They're still there.
Yeah, just if you like complete newly download Clip Studio, they might not be there. So
I see.
But they're still available, and then the assets library has like tons more to go with.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay, let's see, what else do we got. So we talked about the character design, and the question was, do you design a character usually to have one outfit for a book, or how many outfits do you usually have per character per book?
In this case, for the Red Phantom, it was just one suit. But there's this other character. I worked on this book called Crush and Lobo. I think I have a picture here. Let me see if you guys can see this. Can you see that? Crush and Lobo, I think you can see it, or maybe not. Oh, you can see it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this character, the girl in the middle, Lobo is a very recognizable character from DCComics. And this is his daughter. For her, she was already a character that was designed, but we gave her other different kind of like clothings during the series. So for her, I did design some clothing, some jackets and stuff like that, which I don't have right here right now, but yeah, I sometimes you do end up designing different suits for the characters for different occasions. So for instance, for this guy here, where we have him with the suit, maybe this would have been an alternative. If he wasn't wearing the original suit, he would probably go around wearing this thing for some other special occasion or something, who knows. But yeah, it's always an option to have an alternative look for that character.
Yeah, but like, do you sometimes forget like which features you had in the character, and then in some panels he has I don't know, just like a few extra things, like I don't know, an earring or something. I hear that from other creators. They're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, that happens a lot. That's why you always have to have that style sheet. For me, it helps a lot to have this guy here because when I finish an issue, for example, I always have to, or probably not even an issue, every 5 pages or so, I go back and review everything to make sure that, as you say, the character is not missing an earring, it's not missing a bracelet or something, because maybe readers won't notice it, but for sure someone will, and if someone does, then your job is not doing great.
yeah. Do you have an
So
editor that helps you with that?
yes, yes. So we actually work with editors. For every miniseries that we work on or every title, there's an editor, and editors do help a lot also when they review the final. When they have like the final look of the book, sometimes they're like, "Hey, we're missing something here. Can you add this or not or blah blah blah." So yeah, that also helps because sometimes you're like so focused on on the page and work that you just forget that there's a missing earring or something like that. So yeah, I usually, well, obviously it helps when you have the style sheet. I usually review every 5 pages or so what I've been doing in the back just to make sure that everything looks coherent. And editors and the writer also do help with the final notes of details and all that.
Speaking of consistency, there was a question about how you keep your characters consistent if you have to draw them so many times. I think that's especially difficult for beginning artists.
Yes, and that's why these style sheets are so helpful, because having this, you already know that this guy is going to look like this when he's facing front all the time. So when you're drawing him, you're going to know that this side of his hair is going to go this way, that his eyebrows are going to be like this shape, that he's going to have this bow tie, and then when you're drawing him from this, and you know his hair is going to look like this. So that's why I mean it's a lot of practice, but also having these style sheets helps a lot, because then you just quote unquote copy what you did before and make sure that it looks like the first drawing you did all the way down the rest of the comic book. So it's a lot of practicing, but also using these references. That's what we make them for, in order to make sure that the character looks the same all the way through.
What's your favorite part of designing characters?
I think coming up with, well, there's two. When I get the approval, I guess it's a favorite. Because you're always with the challenge of oh man, what are they gonna say? Are they gonna like it? Are they gonna want to make changes and all that? But obviously, beside that, it's when you start when you have your blank page and you start just scribbling ideas out and all that. That's probably the most interesting part. And I guess when you're on the final stage, like on this here, and you create the whole thing and you see it, and it's like, okay, it looks cool, or it looks nice or whatever. Like with these ones here, with these characters, they're all so different. That it was always like a little challenge. Like we were talking earlier before about this the lizard here. This was lots of fun to create, playing around with the colors and all that. But here in this case, all these other little details, when they were reviewed, we ended up not leaving them and just having the lizard with a green color and those kind of like leaves over the eyes. And this one, the funny thing is that it has like a friendly mode and an attack mode. So you have those two different modes for this lizard. But yeah, that part is my favorite, I guess, when you're starting like to figure out what it's gonna look like.
Yeah. Do you prefer coming up with your own, or do you like to work based on the description?
I like both. I like both actually, because when you have a description, it's probably easier to nail down what the client wants. Like if they're like already like, I want this guy in a suit looking like this and this, then you're like, okay, it's pretty much straightforward like this. But then on the other side, when you're creating your own characters, it's you probably have a wider range of different options of where you want to go and what you want them to look like and all that. So I don't know. I probably, I guess it's more fun to create your own characters, because you can go pretty much, you can do whatever you want. But on the other side, I mean, when you're running against time, when you get the description of what the client wants, it's like, okay, pretty straightforward, and you get the job done.
Yeah. How often does it happen that you completely have to rework something because it was like not at all what the client wanted? Or does that happen at all to you?
Luckily, I've never had to like completely rework something. I did, for example, in this case, sorry. This one here, this is actually not the final face of this girl. We ended up going with something more alien. Let me see if I actually have that file here. Because she was looking too human here, and what they wanted was for her to look a little bit more like an alien. So here it is. It's loading. Okay, so this is what the final face ended up looking like. So it's completely, I mean, it's not completely different, but it looks more alien, right? Compared to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we kept everything else. We kept the clothing, the looks, and all that, the color of the skin, but we just changed a little bit more the eyes and the shape of the face and all that.
Yeah.
So that's one of those times where you end up changing a little bit more of what you initially had in mind in your head and to what we ended up putting in the book.
Yeah.
And well, this other character that we were talking about earlier, this one, he ended up changing his nose in the final piece.
Yeah.
So yeah, so sometimes you do have to change some stuff, but I mean, it's not. I mean, when it's not a big deal, it's fine.
Yeah. Sometimes it's probably just something small you need to change. Yeah, we talked about this before the session. It's just like tiny changes that are requested. It's very interesting to hear that. And how frustrating is it for you to or is it at all frustrating if someone wants to change a design you're really fond of?
Well, yeah, sometimes you're like, oh, but I really liked this. For example, I wasn't completely convinced when they asked for something more alien. I was like, oh, okay, I'll give them something that looks really alien and looks really ugly, like this one. And they were like, excellent, that's just what we had in mind. And I was like, oh man, but the other one looked like so cute and all that.
Yeah.
But then and then the challenge is drawing this face here and giving it expressions and emotions throughout the storyline, because obviously it's harder to give emotions to this face rather than this one, which is
true.
So yeah, but those are the fun parts of the character process. But yeah, I mean, it's part of the business.
Yeah, I would imagine that you have to, like, if you're working for a big company and you get the request, then that's what you got to do. That's probably
for sure. I mean, they know what they want, so
definitely.
Just gotta give them that.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end now. Just to close everything up, do you have any recommendations for beginning artists who really want to get into character design? How much should they practice? Stuff like that. Any closing comments on people who would like to get into character design for their own comics or for like aspiring DC artists?
Well, one of the main things for character design is anatomy. That's something that you really have to practice a lot. No matter if, like in this case, it's a robot, a big scary alien, or a lizard, or this manatee-looking insect with human legs. Anatomy is always key and important to that. And then once you have your anatomy handled, you pretty much it's way easier to start like working out different shapes and forms for characters. Obviously, this insect here, it doesn't have the proportions of the exact anatomy of a human, but you already know the rules of anatomy, and then you can play around and start shaping out the form of that. That's one thing. The other one is I love searching character design artists online, like on social media or stuff like that, because every artist is different, and you can learn a lot from all the different artists, and then you can probably find the way or the line of style that you want to work on, and that's super helpful. And searching for references also helps a lot. Movie character designs, game designs, as I mentioned earlier, designing characters for video games is totally different to designing characters for comic books, because you're gonna have to draw them all the time, so you don't want to go like with crazy details on your designs. But for gaming and movies, it's not a problem, because you can just make a 3D shape of it, and then that'll go on by its own. So so yeah, basically I think those are like the 3 points. Anatomy, using references, and looking for the different other looking for inspiration on other character design artists.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your explanations and your time for this webinar. I think
Well,
Mario's
thank you, and I hope people enjoyed it. I hope they learned something, and it
yeah,
can be useful
definitely.
for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. We had so many more questions, but unfortunately we're out of time at this point.
All right.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Amancay, for this wonderful webinar. Everybody loved it, and we just want to share one last bit of information. Learn more about Clip Studio Paint in our website, clipstudio.net/n, and also graphicsly.com. A reminder that this webinar has been recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channels, Clip Studio Paint channel, and Graphicsly. So don't forget to subscribe to receive a notification once it's available. And also, for more information about Amancay and his projects, don't forget to follow him on social media as Amancay_art on Twitter and Instagram. And also, if you have Facebook, follow him as well. So with that, we want to say thank you to all of the attendees. Thank you, Joanna, so much for handling all of the questions. And of course, thank you so much, Amancay, for this wonderful webinar.
Thank you, guys.
So with that, I was just going to let you know that please stay tuned for more events, promotions, and we'll see you in our next event. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.